Alex, hello. Thank you very much for joining the
Good
WhatsApp.
morning.
Yeah, good morning. So we met in Dubai with you in 2023. I came by your stand and was really interested because there was, from all of the climate tech startups that were in the COP28, you were quite different because at first I didn't get what you were doing, but then I realized, you are like one of the few startups, and actually maybe the only startup that I know that is actually whose target market is oil industry. Is
Yeah,
that right?
oil and gas industry is target market. Yeah, absolutely.
Well, and that's really fascinates me because I mean, I did work in the energy industry in traditional like power generation, even coal generation, gas fired generation, but after that, it was all renewables, and clean energy and electric vehicles and so on. But really, I mean, tackling the biggest challenge that we have at the moment is the oil industry, which is so embedded in how our economies are run in our daily lives. Yeah, I think it's massive. So, and I think it's really cool that we have, that there are startups in the world like yours that actually is not saying, okay, we can skip that or forget that. No, let's
Mm.
actually try to do something with it. And
Absolutely. We will have to live with oil and gas for many years to come, and we have to do something about it now because this is where the emissions are happening at the moment.
yeah,
So we are for working with classical industries and not only oil and gas because we have also refineries, but we have petrochem plants, we have fertilizers plants, we have geothermal, we have desalination plants in view. So it's quite a broad array. But the biggest segment is by far downstream refineries and petrochem plants.
yeah. Can you tell more about your company, please, for people who don't know, haven't heard about Angara Global? That's
All right. So Angara was born a few years ago on the idea that there are equipments in many industries, as I mentioned before, which are called heat exchangers. And these heat exchangers, when they're used, they get fouled, which means that there is some dirt that accumulates inside the heat exchangers. And when the heat exchangers are dirty, they become less efficient. So the way to mitigate this problem for before it can be cleaned, the way to mitigate it is to burn more oil or more energy to compensate for the loss in efficiency. So this is where we are in downstream, in particular in petrochem. So in downstream alone, we have identified a potential of reduction in energy consumption and more importantly in CO2 emission of up to 400 million tons of CO2 that can be abated by having the heat exchangers cleaned regularly. And this is what we are about. We're about uh, providing the customers with an overlook of what is happening with the heat exchangers. So we have a lot of monitoring in our offer. We have a lot of data management in order to understand what's the stage of the fouling in the heat exchanger. And then we propose solutions to clean in situ without without stopping production, just by isolating the heat exchanger for the time of the cleaning. And we have recipes of chemicals that are patented. We have a lot of patents in Angara, and we do bespoke recipes for each type of fouling that we find. And this is why it's so powerful. That's why it's so efficient in terms of cleaning. It's more efficient. Most of the time, it's most efficient than any other method, including hydrojet, which is the most classical way. And as I said before, we can do that without stopping production, without dismantling the heat exchangers, whereas traditional methods have to be done during turnarounds when the plant is stopped, and it is for many days. We are shorter in terms. I mean, it takes us a few days to clean a heat exchanger, whereas traditionally it can be up to 20, 30 days in traditional turnarounds.
so you mean that in before your company introduced your service, I mean, the refineries and the heat they were clean, but they had to like stop the production completely and take up to a month to clean this up. So and they would they could opt not to do that, but just burn more oil to
Yeah,
compensate for this drag,
absolutely.
so to say. Okay, so and you basically solved it. Okay, okay, guys, you can run your refinery. Don't stop that. And at the
Mhm.
same time, you don't need to burn more oil to actually get the same amount of output.
That's right. That's the main idea. That's the main business idea behind Angara.
And from your webpage, I saw that that's about like a 35% efficiency gain, right?
Right. So it can be up to 35, 40% if the refinery moves to more efficient equipment. By keeping traditional equipment, it's between 5 and 15% of efficiency gain. If you move to more efficient equipment, such as welded plates, heat exchangers, that can be up to 40%. That's right.
Wow. That's it does sound like a good selling point. And one of the problems that I see that a lot of startups in green tech face, and I myself also faced when I was running my own startups, is that it's really hard, even if you have like a really good product, really good idea, it's really hard to get a first client. And I would imagine that an industry such as oil refining or chemicals, it's even harder because they are kind of they entrenched. They're run by big corporations, who have very long and cumbersome procedures for having any kind of supplier or letting anyone mess with their precious heat exchanger. I mean, how do you know how did you get that first contract? What
So
was the
you're asking the very good question, actually. It's true that in oil and gas companies in particular, but petrochem plants the same, they are very conservative, they're very risk adverse, they're very much enjoying what they know and the way they do things traditionally. So we have been working with many of them with pilots. So we have done more than 20 pilots all around the world, in Thailand, in Russia, in Serbia, in the Netherlands, in Belgium. I must forget something here, but in different geographies we've done some pilots to demonstrate what we were saying. The other thing is that we have a very strict operational guideline in order to reassure the oil and gas companies or the petrochem plants that we are serious about what we do and how we do things, starting with health and safety, saying that it's a priority, top priority for us. We don't accept any spillage, we don't accept any LTI, of course. So this is an essential thing. And on top of that, what we have done is that, and this was actually encouraged by our bankers, by JP Morgan, who are our main bankers, we have entertained an audit by a company called DNV, which
Mm.
is very famous in this area. And DNV has awarded us a TRL. So this is the readiness level of our guidelines to 8 plus out of maximum of 9. So we are considered by DNV as being very mature, and this is reassuring for the oil and gas companies that want to do the testing with us. And this is what we've been doing to get introduced all these pilots, as I mentioned before, for the past few years.
And these pilots that you did, were they kind of free for this
No,
companies? No, they paid
only
for it.
we've been doing only paying pilots.
Mm.
We're not making much money on them because we are trying to sell them at cost. But we have not done free pilots. It's all paying pilots.
And the DNV certification, if I can say so. Yeah, DNVs are famous. Did you get that before you did pilots or after you start doing that?
In between,
In between.
after we've done some pilots and before we done others. So this was done at the time when we were doing the Zeeland refinery. So it's a total energy refinery in the Netherlands. This was the time when the DNV certification was ongoing.
Hmm. Okay. So, and how do you know how you managed to, I mean, break the ice? I mean, what was the thing? I mean, in conversation with people from the oil industry, when you explained to them, you mentioned that you had the strict operational guidelines for which you put like
So
this safety.
yeah, the operation guidelines speak to people on the plant level. This is at this level that it works. At the upper level, we have done. I mean, you can see that on our website. We have done a lot to attract advisors,
Mm,
also board members. So we two things here. We have a board of directors. So we're very strict about governance. We are a startup that wants to become eventually a public company, maybe, or we want to be able to attract investors of the first category. So we have a very strict corporate governance, and we have two non-executive board members. One is Jaap Kaltman, and Jaap is in charge of investments in the Abu Dhabi for sovereign fund. And the other one is Panos Kavoulas, who is a gentleman with Greek, US, and French passports. And he's been all his career with oil and gas. He's been working with Schlumberger. He's been working with McKinsey. But he also was the CEO for Hellenic Petroleum for several years, and he knows how to speak to upper management in this oil and gas company. So this is the second angle of approach, which is at the high level in order to have the right dynamics. Mind you, in these oil and gas companies or in these petrochem plants, it's not because the CEO is aware and positive about what we can do that is going to happen. There's a chain of command which is very sophisticated always, with different bodies. You have engineering, you have operations, you have sustainability, you have different people that are involved in making the decision for your pilot and then for your recurring business. And once you have the go ahead by the CEO, it takes time and efforts to go through the whole structure. And we have what we call the mind maps of our customers, and we identify all the stakeholders, and normally there are many of them. There are more than a dozen, several dozens, I would say, stakeholders in our different clients.
So it's like a two-pronged approach. So there's one
That's right.
one avenue is when you have your heavyweights, your board members. You search and actively attract people on board who can walk into a boardroom or an executive office of a major oil company and freely talk
Yeah.
with the decision maker. But at the same time, you have what you have the operation guidelines, the mind maps, and your own sort of tactical know-how.
And our sales team.
Hmm?
And our sales team. We have a few business development managers as well.
Mm-hmm.
And I forgot to mention, on top of the fact that we have a board of directors, we also have an advisory board with advisors. So they don't meet as regularly as the board of directors, which meets every 2 weeks. The advisors, it's more relaxed relationship, but there are more of them. There are many. We have quite a few advisors. They are all on our site. So you can have a look at them on our internet site. But they come from the different universe, from energy, from finance, from investments, from digital, etc. So we have people with different backgrounds that help us work the strategy for different areas.
I think this is really important. It shows your experience shows how you can prepare your company if you want to break like in a major established industries, which a lot of actually green tech startups are looking for, because they're looking for product. They have a product or service which is B2B, and their client is usually like either big corporate or like car manufacturer or chemical company or power company. And they are more or less alike. My experience been working in Rosatom, for example, which is also a big energy company, which and the government owned, which makes decisions very, very slowly. and
With which company you say?
Rosatom.
Ah, Rosatom.
So that's I would believe it would be kind of similar in the decision making process. And when you explained about going to the plant level and you have the CEO of the plant and having okay of a CEO of the plant, it doesn't mean that you're going to be successful. You still have to navigate all that maze of uh, stakeholders that exist there, and you have to be careful about it, especially with a new product. And you mentioned JP Morgan being one of your banks, right?
It's our main bank, yes.
It's your main bank. Are they like a creditor or they are your investor?
It's neither of those. We are banking as what they call the green platform,
Mm.
which means that it's again a lot about relationship management. They introduce us to many other things. That's the first step. So it's a relationship where we have our accounts with them as a small startup, but it's very for JP Morgan, we are very small, so it's not where they're going to make their money. But they believe that they can be acting as a banker in the relationship management and offering opportunities to meet with the right people at the right level. And besides, once we reach a better level in terms of operations and bigger levels, there will be, of course, our main bank in terms of raising debt. So this is in perspective what is possible with them.
And the company, I checked you out on the pitch book, so you had a several investment raising round.
That's right.
Yeah, and you're so the all of these investors, I didn't get too much in details there, but these investors, I saw there were a lot of individual investors, but
Right.
also I think like venture funds. How did you? What was your main reason for to get those investors on board? I mean, why did they say, okay, we believe in that, we go for this?
I think so. As you rightly said, we have a mix of different types of investors. We have a lot of individuals, high net worth individuals. We have family offices. We have venture clubs. We have different kind of investors. So all this work around attracting investors is led by our main shareholder, who is our executive chairman, Val Kirienko. And Val has put his own money in Angara, and he's the main shareholder with 30% of the equity. And he's leading this workflow of attracting more investors. And as you say, we are now contemplating a new round for $5 million. And the main traction is coming from the idea that this is the right business. The first thing that you touched during our interview, which is that we are proposing a green solution to industries which don't have a very good reputation, but with which we're going to live for the years to come because there is no alternative. So for many investors, it's the good place to be for the time being, because this is where we can make a difference now, not in 5 or 10 years, but already in the coming years, already next year, this year, and this is why they find our company attractive.
Okay, thanks. I saw also on your website, I think that you compare the cost of offsetting the CO2 emissions by an oil company, that's Scope 1 or 2 emissions, uh, which is about €100 per ton of CO2. And is this also a big kind of marketing instrument for you when you say, look, you can either pay $100 per ton that you emit, or you can pay us some amount of money, which is far less, and at the same time you reduce your emissions and cut your costs.
Yeah. So this argument works essentially in Europe, where carbon has a price. So it doesn't work in the US, as you can understand, or not in the same manner. And strangely enough, it's starting to work in the Middle East, because the Middle East wants to be seen as responsible, wants to be seen as being a good citizen in terms of oil production. and they are interested by this this carbon reduction. But you're absolutely right. In terms of marketing, in terms of positioning, besides the energy efficiency, which is the reduction in cost of energy for the refineries or for the petrochem plants or for the other customers, there is the gain in carbon abatement.
Okay. Oh, I think that when probably I don't know. Probably when this carbon border adjustment mechanism, the CBAM, will come in full force, like in a couple of years, maybe that would be more relevant for the industry. What do you think?
Hopefully it will.
Mhm.
Hopefully it will.
And you are in the shifting to the Middle East, using your remark about the Middle East companies has now been paying more attention to carbon markets. What's your impression from the visits to Dubai? I mean, for your particular business, is it an opportunity for growth there, as you see, or not yet?
Right. So first of all, I must say that we have been in the Middle East a couple of years already. We have a subsidiary based in Bahrain. We have a one of the co-founders who is my deputy as well, and who is in charge of the development of the Middle East, Peter Petrov. And Peter has been in contact with a lot of the Middle East companies, you can understand. We also have our chief digital officer who is based in Dubai. So we have a presence in the Middle East, and we've been having this presence for a few years now. And what I can say is that business tends to be even slower in the Middle East than it is in Europe. So you have to be ready for that. But we can feel that there is a lot of interest, and we can feel that we're going to move forward. So as you said, we had a pavilion at COP28 in the startup village. We were one of the very few startups to be selected to be there. And that was in recognition to the fact that we offer already something now in terms of energy efficiency and in terms of carbon abatement. And we were privileged to have Dr. Sultan visiting our pavilion, for instance. And during his visit, he suggested that we do a pilot with ADNOC, the company where he is CEO as well. So we have great hopes that these dynamics of both our presence in the region plus the impact of COP28 will bear fruits, and that we're going to have pilots and then recurring business in the Middle East.
And shifting from that, zooming out a bit, so you already put like your chips on sales, like you put in the Middle East, we're in Europe. And what are your plans for growth? I mean, you have a very distributed team, as I understand.
Yep.
And well, as your asset light business, it's what should work fine for you. But how do you plan to grow? I mean, how fast and how big?
So our plan is very clear. We have that very clear in our mind. So this first round of $5 million is needed for us to be able to grow in Europe and the Middle East, where we already have a presence, where we already have a lab, where we have people, where we have a team, and where we can deploy our technology in the most efficient manner. So this is growth number one. This is for Europe and Middle East. Then we have a second further idea, which is to develop in new markets and in new verticals, meaning new geographies such as North America and Asia, and new verticals such as desalination or fertilizers, these kind of industries where we're not present yet, but we know that there is a market. And for that, we'll do a round of roughly, it's the estimate we have at the moment, it's a round that could be around $30 million. But that will be a later stage when we know that we can deliver on our first promise, which is Europe and Middle East.
What is the what do you see the main challenge for this plan? What will be the greatest kind of
The
obstacle?
greatest challenge that we have at the moment is the conversion between pilots and recurring business. It's already quite difficult to do pilots because of the reasons I mentioned before. But once you've done the pilot and once you've successfully demonstrated that the technology is positive and is bringing results and bearing fruits, then it's not that easy, especially in the oil and gas companies, to move that into a recurring business.
Why?
Why? Again, same reasons. Very conservative environments. People like doing things as they've always been doing. At plant level, the KPIs are not about decarbonization. The KPIs are about reliability. So they're focusing on the reliability of the equipment. They're not focusing on decarbonization. They're not focusing on the efficiency of the equipment. So you have to work with these mentalities, change mentalities, and it's as always when you have to change things, it takes time and effort.
And what do you think would be your main kind of instrument, your main resource to overcome that?
Talent of persuasion by explaining why we deliver, how we deliver, what is the benefit for the oil and gas company or for the petrochem plant or for any other customer. We have and then again, that's the same technology of working with the different levels of stakeholders. So coming back to the CEO saying, listen, thank you for your help. At the beginning, we were able to do a pilot and the pilot has been successful and is bringing this and this result. Let's do something more regular now and let's do a subscription, for instance, for a service. So this is where we are at the moment in negotiations with several oil and gas majors with which we had successful pilots. This is where we are now.
So you want to transition to like a subscription-based service,
That's right.
and this way you would generate the, like steady stream of revenue. But the thing is that, as I understand, you said the main KPIs for the plant level managers are about safety and reliability. It's not about decarbonization. However, I would imagine like the day of an oil exec, uh, not at the plant level, but at the company level, is that could be like half of their day could be devoted to sustainability issues, just fighting them off. Wouldn't that? Why doesn't it translate from the top to the plant level? Or am I wrong? Is it not that
You
is
know,
the case?
I don't want to criticize our potential clients or our existing clients, but the guys have to deal with a situation which is not easy. Their main business is still oil and gas. Their main business is still about bringing oil to the customer. And the whole world is telling them, we're not going to finance you, we're not going to help you, we're not going to support you. You're bad boys. We don't want more oil, etc. Right? And this is so they have to still deliver with a very aggressive and negative environment. And this is where their attention is mostly driven at the moment. They, of course, want to have more sustainability, more CSG and everything, but it takes a lot of their strategic vision. It doesn't necessarily take a lot of their daily work because of the reasons I mentioned before.
What about existing service and equipment providers to oil and gas or oil majors? Are you considering like, because some startup they consider like we get out, we prove the technology, and then we exit to someone who is already in this business,
Yeah.
or is it something that not is not considered at the moment by your by the existing companies in the market which are providing like similar services or could provide the services?
All right. So first of all, there are not that many companies on the market that are proposing something similar to what we're doing. You have a lot of cleaning companies, for instance,
Mhm.
but they are not proactive. They are not proposing a monitoring of the equipment. They're not proposing a schedule or the cognitive approach on the heat exchangers. They're waiting until the tender is out, and then
Mm.
they go for the smallest possible price with known technologies. So this is the way the market is structured at the moment. It's a passive market. It's not an active market. And what we do is that, I forgot to mention that in our business model, we are a scale up, we're still small, right? And we have big customers. So in order to be able to deliver the service, we partner with existing servicing companies.
Mm.
So for instance, in Belgium and in the Netherlands, it's a company called Maurik, which is a €500 million company specialized in services to refineries. We did a project in Belgium with Veolia, the French giant, which is a 50 or 60 billion euro company, right? And they were our partners in delivering the service. So basically, what we provide is the know-how. What we provide is the patents, the recipes for the chemicals, the supervision of the work, but then the whole work itself is done by a service company.
Mhm.
And eventually, by the way, this service company could be our potential exit, our liquidity event as a startup, right? Because we are offering a service that they don't necessarily have.
Could one of the assets, one of the key instruments in your portfolio, be artificial intelligence? Because you put a lot of emphasis on the website on it, and then you have like your chief digital officer. And I understand that you do use AI in designing the recipes, in designing, in evaluating, assessing particular heat exchanger, what you can do with it, how you can approach it.
Yeah. So listen, we have a customer, the most advanced client for us, which is a petrochem company, a very large one, with 18 plants.
Mhm.
And last year we were monitoring 750 heat exchangers,
Mm.
and we think that this year we'll be monitoring 15,000.
Oh.
15,000. So when you're monitoring that number of equipments with all the data that we have on all sorts of elements relating to the heat exchangers efficiency and performance in general, so the amount of data is huge. So without proper data management and without proper intelligence, artificial intelligence, it's not possible to deal with it. So this is why it's so important. This is why we have this chief digital officer who is absolutely crucial in our development and who is developing this. And it was actually there were articles in the press recently about the fact that we have the ability to make the equipment talk to the teams, so the equipment can tell their regular maintenance teams that it's time for them to do something about fouling, about cleaning, etc. So this is why it is so important, and it's one of the keys in our business model.
Mhm. Wow. So I would, correct me if I'm wrong, but I would see that it's actually like a second service which you would be providing, which is kind of could be decoupled from the service of optimizing the heat exchanger, or cleaning up the heat exchanger.
We
Because,
see it as the first service, actually. We see it as the first service, the intelligence on the equipment.
Mhm.
So we see ourselves a bit like in inverted comma a hospital for heat exchangers
Mhm.
and equipment in general, and this is and we're basing that on this very successful relationship with the client I was mentioning before, and so we see our first service as the monitoring of the equipment, and then the second service in providing solutions to remove fouling.
Because I wouldn't, from what you said about you partnering with existing servicing companies, in would I would imagine that at some point in time, the servicing companies would either overtake that part of the business, or you would need to become yourself a service company and compete with them actively, while at the same time you could sell your AI predictive maintenance service irrespective of what you do on the cleaning service, on the cleaning and servicing service business.
That's right.
So there's a possibility like a pivot or even branching of some business. Well, this is interesting because I didn't see many applications of this kind of AI in Greentech yet. From what I've seen, applications of predictive maintenance in clean energy or batteries is not so widely used. So it's, in the growing market, it's very difficult to do business and optimization because it's just growing. But that's not the case with oil, probably, and that's why it's more interesting because your segment is focused. It's very focused, and as you said, because you could apply the same principles to other industries like chemicals, but you're not doing that at the moment, right? You're just focusing on the heat exchangers.
Absolutely.
And so, was it difficult to make this decision to stay focused just on one industry and one service? Because you've been operating for several years now, and the technology you have could be used in other sectors, as you said in the beginning.
I think the specialization in the oil and gas industry came by itself. First of all, with the origin of the company, the first job started in Russia, which is heavily an economy which is heavily led by oil and gas. So this was natural to be there, and then it expanded in the world with different industries. So this was very natural and not a problem at all.
Because I would imagine that at some point in time, as any startup, you try to find try to do as many sales as you can, and you go to any kind of customer who might be willing to use your service. But for you, I think it was, you said because it was natural. So maybe you had, and you already did. You said you did more than 20 pilot projects. So I would imagine just because you were not sitting idly, so you had all the time something to do. You had the one pilot project and the other pilot project, and they were all coming like from the same industry, so it was easy to keep focused.
Yeah. And again, I want to say that the oil and gas industry is quite obvious as a candidate for our service because it's already here, it's criticized, and they have to move to do things about their scope 1 and scope 2 emissions. The heat exchangers are crucial in refineries and petrochem plants, and the potential for emission reduction, the abatement is 400 million tons. It's absolutely huge. Multiply by the value of the ton of CO2, and you have a fantastic market. So this is why it's obvious that this is this first vertical which comes naturally to us.
Great. So thank you very much, Alex, for this really interesting insight in how all industry operates. I found it resonates with me a lot.
Very good.
I see the challenges and I personally encounter the challenges when you're a startup and you're trying to sell your product or service to a big corporation. What would you recommend? I mean, you have a lot of experience, and you work not only in this startup. You work with a lot of different companies and big time. What would be your recommendation to startups in Greentech who are just starting the growth? So they prove the technology, it works in the lab. They go out in the market. What should they watch out for?
They should watch out for the customer need. You get very easily excited when you do things, when you have good ideas, you have your technology, and you can get easily trapped into designing something which you like, which is not necessarily what the customer will like, right? So my advice would be to keep always in mind exactly what the client needs, right? So that you develop the product that is needed, not the product that you think is fancy.
Does that really run into your experience of the plant managers having the KPIs that are not really suited to their projects?
Well, it connects with that, and this is making our life difficult because We are not about their own KPIs about reliability. Well, we are partly reliable for the equipment reliability. We have an impact, but it's not as obvious as the impact on efficiency and performance in terms of energy. So it's when I say the client, it has to be the global client. It means the whole stakeholders map I was mentioning before, which is the people with whom you're talking at the plant level, but then the people in the hierarchy, people in the research and development part of the organization, the people in charge of sustainability in the client organization. So you have to think many times, what are these people's KPIs, what they are interested in, what they want, and then you design your product accordingly.
And if you are an engineer, or I don't know, a tech guy who came up with this stuff, but who never kind of interacted with this kind of companies, how would you advise them? I mean, what tactical steps would you advise them to have from your experience to make? If they go up against, not against, if they go up to big companies and try to sell the product, the service, and all, like for example, they would sell predictive maintenance for the wind turbines, or they would sell their some chemical for cathodes for the battery or something else, and they go to these big corporations, even the new ones, and but they're already big and they're already established, the structures, the procedures, and okay, they figured the customer need, but is that all? There's a need there, but still, do you think they need to equip themselves with something else to be
A lot
successful?
of psychology, because you know what? It's a proven fact. A good sales interview is 80% listening and only
Mm.
20% talking, right? Normally, people who are in business development, salespeople, they are obsessed with the fact that they want to tell the story more. They want to explain. They want to show. They want to really give everything they know about their own product, etc. Actually, a successful discussion with a stakeholder, with the customer, is the other way around. It's when the salesperson gets as much information as possible from the customer. By the way, it also works in terms of hormones. When you talk about yourself, you receive a dose of hormone which is better than when you listen about somebody else. So it's a good psychological trick to make the people talk more about their needs. And then you can figure out the best way to present things, because you know a lot about their own business, their own strategy, their own KPIs. So really my advice would be to be very humble, always listen a lot, and then adapt the product and the service to what the customer really needs.
Just let me thank you very much for that, but let me even push here even more, just with the last question. How do you get those people to listen to you? I mean, you're a humble startup. You're really humble in your startup, and these guys, they make lots of money. They have a lot of things to do. They have all kind of meetings throughout the day. How do you get them to sit down with you and talk to you?
It's an endless work. It requires a lot of persuasion. It requires a lot of resilience. We tend to receive no's, no or nothing, no answer, vacuum, etc. for months and months. But I always tell the team, you have to come back. You have to come back to, even if you hear no, it doesn't mean no completely. It means that it's no for this time for this person, right? So you need to filter the organization and try to come back. We have examples like this when we had written refusal for technology from a customer, and yet we're now preparing a pilot for this customer, because we're resilient and because we really persevere in trying to prove the benefit of the service.
I see. So be humble, be focused on what your customer needs, and be persistent.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you very much, Alice, for this insightful conversation.
Welcome.
I enjoyed it. And thank you very much for your time. I know you have a very busy schedule now. And good luck to Angara Global.
Thank you very much. And thank you, and good luck to your own platform.
Thank you very much, Alex.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
You too.